Hey, what is up everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. What a day that we honestly have in wrestling news today. Here we are sitting here talking about WWE's Crown Jewel 2018, a show that may or may not be coming to you live on the WWE Network the first week of November from Saudi Arabia. This show honestly is at the point where I think WWE has to go through with honestly having the Crown Jewel in the first week in November. I don't know if it's going to happen from Saudi Arabia or not. Honestly, in my mind, I think that WWE already has in their mindset they're going to go through with the deal with the Saudis. They're going to take the big oil money and they're going to cash that check because they feel like it's a lot of money. I've heard that the deal is for $50 million. I've heard the deal is for $2 million. One way or another, there's millions of dollars coming their way, and I think WWE is going to go through it. I honestly don't watch the news, and in the last video about Crown Jewel that I made, I talked about that, basically saying that I am not the best case of the best source of news. Anyone who keeps up with the hurricane that hit the coast of Florida, the town that was affected is honestly the same town that I have gone on vacation on for the last like 4 years. That is where I've made videos during the summer, where I go visit my mom. That's where she lives, and I honestly didn't even know that the hurricane was coming until the day before. And honestly, I watched a lot of the Weather Channel and CNN, Fox News, keeping up with the hurricane since then. But I honestly don't know a lot about the Saudi Arabia, I guess you can say, government making a newspaper or maybe an internet reporter borderline disappear. We know that he's been murdered. They came out and they basically said that he has passed away. There's a lot of excuses that are up in the air about why this guy has passed away, and since then people are trying to really separate themselves from the Saudi government to the point where they know that there's a lot of money to be made there, but people don't want WWE doing business with these people at this time because of the fact that they're bad people. And I know that there was a little bit of public outcry during the first Crown Jewel. Nothing from the wrestlers, maybe more from wrestling fans or what wrestling historians, wrestling reporters, basically not letting the women go on the trip, not letting them perform, not letting them make money. Honestly, in my opinion, if the Saudi Arabian government wants to put on a WWE show and they only want the men to be there and they have the money to actually pay for the show to the point where WWE just has to show up, they don't have to try and sell tickets or anything like that, they can have on the show whoever they want to have, even if they're asking for Yokozuna or any sort of past superstars that aren't even with us today. There's no, it shows you why WWE went to the lengths of, getting Great Khali to Saudi Arabia. But this year, we honestly, or not this year, it was earlier this year they went, but this trip, we honestly have wrestlers that are being vocal with the point that they don't want to go to Saudi Arabia. Before today, it was only rumblings and rumors. Some people have thought that Rey Mysterio was one of the wrestlers that didn't want to go to Saudi Arabia. Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think Rey gets to make that decision because the fact he just recently signed his deal with WWE, and for him to come out and say that he doesn't want to go to Saudi Arabia doesn't really make much sense, because I think it was in the plans for him to be a part of the Saudi Arabia trip, especially after he was featured in the World's Greatest Royal Rumble when he wasn't even under contract at the time. I think that it's been known that he's going, and now that he's a part of the World Cup that's going to be taking on the show, I don't really know. But the names that were announced today was Daniel Bryan and John Cena have both come out and used, I guess you can say, their stature in WWE to be vocal with the point that they don't want to go to Saudi Arabia and doesn't think that WWE should go there. I I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't think WWE is going to really make these guys draw a line in the sand, but I don't think there's any way in the world that this show is not going to happen. And as of this time, John Cena is one of the guys that is going to be featured in the World Cup matches. We also have Daniel Bryan involved in a WWE Championship match. I know that they have a lot of stature in WWE with their, sort of spot, I guess you can say, being on top of the card, even though neither of them are champions right now, but being a part of Total Divas and both Total Bellas. They are a big part of the WWE universe, and I think that their voice needs to be listened to, and I think that they're both being voices of the locker room, coming out and being vocal, basically saying what the guys in the locker room is saying. If this card does go down in Saudi Arabia the first week of November, we had a big change on Monday Night Raw with Roman Reigns coming out basically saying that he's been battling leukemia for the last 11 years, and he has had a setback where the leukemia has come back, and he gave up the Universal Championship. He forfeited it. And it looks like WWE has already announced that the three-way between Strowman, Roman, and Brock is now going to be a singles match with just Braun Strowman going up against Brock Lesnar. I know that Brock and Braun had a singles match last year on pay-per-view. I know that they also were featured in the Royal Rumble this year in a three-way with Kane. And both of those were really good matches. Honestly, in my opinion, the singles match between Brock and Braun was a little bit short. I don't really know where to go with that because we don't really have any rumors on what the deal with Brock Lesnar and WWE is. That's one of the best things about Brock, is that every time he comes around, there's always rumors about, a 2 or 3 year contract that comes back and says that Brock's contract ends at a certain date. We've thought it ended at WrestleMania. We thought that it ended at SummerSlam. We've seen Brock show up at UFC and actually get inside of the octagon as a guest of Dana White, challenging Daniel Cormier to a fight that still hasn't been announced. Cormier, I think, is going to be fighting at UFC 230 while we wait to see if he's going to fight John Jones or Brock Lesnar down the road. So we'll see, what really happens from there. But, this show, to me, honestly, it's got a killer tournament with a lot of stars in it. AJ versus Daniel Bryan shouldn't disappoint. But, I don't really see a title change coming. In the last few, I guess you can say, dream matches that AJ Styles has been announced in on pay-per-view, whether if it's against Nakamura, whether if it was against Samoa Joe, those matches honestly have fallen flat, and mostly every other match that AJ's been a part of have been great. So it's almost like I want to go into Crown Jewel with low expectations for that. I know that there's going to be more of a card to fill this in. We've also got the DX reunion going up against the Brothers of Destruction. So this is going to be a good show, whether if it happens or not. But like I said, we have to sit and wait to see if this show's even going to happen, where it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. And with the Roman Reigns thing, this show really got rocked. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. WWE announces Hulk Hogan is back in. He's going to be attending the Crown Jewel show. I know that when the story broke that Hulk Hogan got brought in and reinstated to the WWE Hall of Fame, he was at Extreme Rules. He was backstage. He filmed some sort of something with just talking to the crew and being brought back into the family. It's been debated about whether he was filmed apologizing to the WWE roster for the things that were said, and it's also been debated about whether if everybody on the roster accepted his apology. But one thing leads to another. Hulk Hogan is a huge part of WWE's history, and him coming back to WWE and being a part of Crown Jewel is honestly a big deal, even though in the grand scheme of things, it's not really going to be that big of a deal. There's been no real announcement. There is not going to be a big battle royal this year. So I don't really know how Hulk Hogan is going to be used. I don't know if he just is sort of like the guest host, much like he was at WrestleMania 30, and he kicks off the show giving a big speech about how big of a deal it is for WWE to be in Saudi Arabia. Maybe he'll challenge Sergeant Slaughter to a match that they can, have a rematch from WrestleMania 7 way back in the day. I don't really know where this goes, but I've always not shied away that I understand the problems that Hulk Hogan created for himself doing what he did, and it's not really up to a person like me to accept his apology and say that everything's fine and just bring him back. I can tell that it seems, in my opinion, that there is an overwhelming from wrestling fans that are on Twitter and on Facebook and on social media that are ready to, accept Hulk Hogan's apology and bring him back. But I can honestly tell you that from a wrestling fan that is a huge Hulk Hogan fan, I honestly can say that I've never really heard the apology. I've never really heard him say that he's sorry for what he did. He always just sort of makes the excuse that he didn't know that he was being recorded. So that's always been like the problem that I've had with Hulk Hogan, is that he's never really apologized. He didn't go on the apology tour, doing all the radio shows and TV interviews, and just saying that he never should have said what he said. I did hear that sort of weak reasoning that that's just the way people talk from where he came from and where he grew up, and that doesn't really relate to what's going down. I grew up, I was born here in Sacramento, but I did live in Georgia in the Deep South for a while, and some weird stuff goes on there that's not acceptable anywhere else in the world. And I don't use that as my excuse to say things out there, so it doesn't really make sense to me. So I think it's awesome that Hulk's coming back, that he's going to be on the show. I can't wait to see how he's used. It's not going to be wrestling. I mean, he's not going to be in a battle royal or anything. So it's just going to be fun to be able to see my guy back in WWE and see how it is really accepted by wrestling fans around the world. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. We're talking about the WWE World Heavyweight Championship match at the Crown Jewel pay-per-view. It's going to be coming to you from Saudi Arabia. There was lots of talks of basically the Crown Jewel pay-per-view not happening in Saudi Arabia, maybe taking place somewhere here in the United States, with all of the whole backlash that Saudi Arabia is getting right now. But it looks like the WWE is still going to be going through with it. On their last investment call, Vince McMahon dodged questions the best he could. He didn't really want to admit that they were going there, but there's been no plans to pull out as of right now. So the rumor is that John Cena and Daniel Bryan will both not be attending the show. That they basically are using their stroke in the company to basically pull out and say that they aren't going to be going. Daniel Bryan's absence might not even be explained before the show, filming some sort of backstage, I guess you can say, skit or something like that. Basically being said is that Daniel Bryan's possibly just going to get jumped backstage by another member of the WWE SmackDown roster, which would jump right into a match with AJ Styles on the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, now being the new WWE Championship match. Honestly, in my opinion, the one guy that I think that should be getting that spot should be Cien Almas, because of the fact that he's had really good matches against AJ Styles, and since moving from NXT to the WWE roster, although he hasn't won any of the big matches that he's had on SmackDown, I think Andre has been able to hold his own and basically show the WWE that he really is going to be a main player in the company. Sorry guys, I had to get my my Taco Bell on right there. But honestly, I think that Andre Cien Almas replacing Daniel Bryan would be a huge thing. I know that WWE, we've talked about this at the World's Greatest Royal Rumble. We talked about it at the Super Showdown, that they want to make these shows more than just glorified house shows on the WWE Network. And there's always these rumors that they want to have a huge title change. We already know that we're going to be getting a new WWE Universal Champion, but as of right now, I don't want to say anything bad against AJ Styles' run with the championship, because although it is a pretty long run with the title, he's had feuds against big members of the WWE SmackDown roster like Samoa Joe and Shinsuke Nakamura. I think that sometimes I'm not saying that they want to just take the title off of somebody just to take it off of them, but I think it would be a huge moment that people would, not really remember this as the WWE pay-per-view that took place from Saudi Arabia, more than, this is the show that, Andre Cien almost won the WWE Championship. I think that would be a big moment that honestly people would remember, over the course of time, that would help this show hold up as being something really memorable, that people want to, go back and watch on the WWE Network or something like that. So I'm looking forward to this being a big show. It's not set in stone that Daniel Bryan is not going to be appearing at the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, but honestly, the one thing that I've always sort of thought about was, when there's smoke, there probably is, some sort of fire coming behind it. And the big rumors is that John Cena and Daniel Bryan both using their sort of spot or stroke, or however you want to say it, not showing up for the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, not wanting to put up with, what, Saudi Arabia is doing over there, no matter how much money is going to be helping the bottom line of the WWE company. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. Big change to the WWE Championship match at WWE's Crown Jewel show. It's going to be now Samoa Joe going up against AJ Styles for the WWE Championship. Yet once again, we already had a trio of matches, and I honestly can't tell you the last time that I saw Samoa Joe after taking the loss to AJ Styles. It was almost like he just sort of disappeared. But here he is reappearing. They had to sort of come up with an excuse while Daniel Bryan was not going to be at WWE's Crown Jewel. They ended up going with just doing the match on SmackDown, and once AJ did beat Daniel Bryan, we had Samoa Joe come out and just sort of raise hell, beating everybody up and leaving everybody laying, raising that WWE Championship above his head, and that's enough to sort of qualify him to be the new #1 contender. Joe is going to be making the trip to Saudi Arabia. He will be having the match against AJ Styles. I can honestly say off the top of my head, they had the matchup at SummerSlam. They had the matchup, I can't remember what the names of the shows are, but I think we've seen this match 3 times already. And although on one of the matches, AJ Styles got the win, but instant replay showed that he did tap out to Samoa Joe, locking on that submission, that he should have been champion. He should have got the win. They ended up having another rematch after that AJ ended up getting the win, and that was supposed to be the end of the story. But now here we are, just filling him in. In my opinion, I thought it would have been awesome to have somebody like Andre Cien Almas be the reason why Daniel Bryan wasn't going to be competing at the Crown Jewel show. He's already had 2 really good matches against AJ Styles. I thought that he would have been a really good sort of filler to have a WWE Championship match. You could have done a title change where he could have done a title change and he could have been the new champion, and it would have been a big deal. It would have been a lot like Edge, cashing in the Money in the Bank for the first time, where Andre Cien Almas is a guy who's been on SmackDown. He's had a lot of really good matches. Anybody who watches SmackDown would take notice that, he is killing it. He's just not getting a lot of wins, a lot like when he was in NXT before he became the NXT champion. And it would have been just sort of a shock to the system. I don't think it would have been a shock quite like Jinder Mahal, because I don't think of people looking at Almas as the same sort of like jobber status that Jinder had before becoming WWE champion and going on the run with the belt against Randy Orton, and before he lost it to AJ, because they didn't want to do Jinder versus Brock at Survivor Series last year. Man, that was a year ago when Jinder Mahal was champion. Wow, that seems like forever ago, honestly, in my mind. But, CM Almas, I think, winning the title at Crown Jewel would have made that show memorable to the point where people would have been wanting to run to the WWE Network to watch this show, to actually see that title change happen, and be able to say they saw it instead of just reading about it. But, it is what it is. They could have Joe beat AJ. Honestly, in my mind, I don't know if that really makes for a memorable championship win, especially as, Samoa Joe hasn't been WWE champion or Universal champion in WWE. It would be his first time with the belt, and it'd be his fourth time competing for the WWE championship in just a few matter of months since August. So, does it really take 4 times to get the job done? But AJ's got to lose someday sooner than later. I hope that it's just more in a more memorable match that people are going to be wanting to remember the feud going down. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. We're talking about the WWE's Crown Jewel World Cup tournament that is going to be coming down to find out who is the best in the world. This tournament's going to be held pay-per-view on Saturday. I'm pretty sure when this goes down. It's an 8-man grid. There's going to be 4 different first-round matches, which lead to semifinals, which leads to the final. This plays in, and it talks a lot about Raw versus SmackDown. The way that they drew up the brackets is that Monday Night Raw is going to be on the left-hand side, while SmackDown Live holds the right. Both of these, brands are basically bringing 4, I guess you could say, A-plus talents. Most of these guys are main event guys, or, really close to being at the very top of the mid-card. You can really tell that they're held in a high stature. Of course, this week on Monday Night Raw, Baron Corbin pulled John Cena out of the Crown Jewel tournament. There's lots of talk about that. He was replaced by Bobby Lashley. So the first round matchup is going to be Seth Rollins going up against Bobby Lashley. Of course, John Cena, I guess, didn't want to come on the tour. Him and Daniel Bryan were 2 people that had enough stature in the company to put their feet down, basically saying that they were not going to be attending WWE's Crown Jewel. They did not want to go to Saudi Arabia at this current time. John Cena more than likely has to do with his move into entertainment, more of Hollywood, making movies, television shows, hosting award shows, and probably doesn't want to be, sort of linked in with Saudi Arabia at this time. It'd be very easy for anybody that does attend this show and does perform to sort of be linked to, supporting, what is going on in Saudi Arabia. The WWE, they're going to be very hands-on with anybody that invested into the show. There's going to be lots of pictures and shaking hands, and you don't want to be linked up with the wrong person over there, that a picture can come back and haunt you somewhere down the road. So he was replaced by Bobby Lashley. Lots to talk about with Seth Rollins being involved in this match. I know that the Roman Reigns thing came out of the middle of nowhere, and that led to the breakup of the Shield with Dean Ambrose attacking Seth Rollins. And as of right now, I don't even know when we're going to be able to get a Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose match, seeing how this pay-per-view Crown Jewel, Seth Rollins is involved in the World Cup tournament. Then we have Survivor Series, unless they make some sort of a special match. Looks like it's going to be Raw versus SmackDown again, so that wouldn't be able for us to have a Rollins versus Ambrose match. So that means that it would be bumped until the December pay-per-view. So here we are with a big feud. It looks like they're going to have 2 months at least before we have some sort of a payoff to it. So maybe it'll just sort of be the television main event for a while. that gets us there, but you can really tell that the Rollins versus Ambrose thing came up at the last moment, but it really put Ambrose in a light of being a heel that people really fell in love with Dean Ambrose again. He's always been somebody that people really liked, so I would not be surprised whether to see Ambrose be a part of the Seth Rollins versus Bobby Lashley match. I don't know where he would fit in on the rest of the Crown Jewel show. He definitely is a guy that is going to be, flown over there to Saudi Arabia to be a part of the show somehow. So, whether if he, involves himself in the Rollins versus Lashley match, making Rollins lose, of course, it would not be an Intercontinental title match, and Lashley would be able to move on to the next form of tournament where he would fight the winner of Kurt Angle versus Dolph Ziggler. So at this time, I know that it is kind of weird. I'm picking Bobby Lashley to beat Seth Rollins in the first round of the tournament. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. We have Kurt Angle versus Dolph Ziggler in the first round of the WWE Crown Jewel World Cup tournament. The winner of this match will move on to the semifinals, fighting against Seth Rollins and Bobby Lashley. The winner of that match would then go on to fight in the championship. I guess you can say the tournament final to find out who is the best in the world. Kurt Angle, since returning to WWE, he had his first match returning with The Shield, replacing Roman Reigns at TLC last year. And then, of course, he would have wrestled in the Survivor Series, Raw versus SmackDown men's match. He wrestled at WrestleMania with Ronda Rousey, and then here he is having a match against Dolph Ziggler. The storyline is that Kurt Angle, who is replaced on Monday Night Raw, he said that he needed a break. He's on vacation. Angle found a way to sneak into the qualifying for the Crown Jewel World Cup. And now here he is competing to prove that he still can go. He's posting a lot of videos, doing gym workouts, and showing how hard he is really trying to push himself in order to get there. I honestly can see Kurt Angle beating Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler is the I guess you can say glorified, maybe main event guy as a member of the trio of Dolph Ziggler, Drew McIntyre, and Braun Strowman. We've sort of had a breakup between Strowman separating himself from Ziggler and McIntyre, but you really can tell that they're setting something up for Drew McIntyre to be the guy to go after Braun Strowman once there is a clearing and they're able to have, Braun Strowman involved in a singles match, whether if that's, to go after the Universal Championship or just a singles match down the road. It is what it is. So Dolph Ziggler has been a guy that, when that trio has been losing matches, he is the guy that has been taking the fall. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Kurt Angle lose this match. I know that I talked a lot about interference between Seth Rollins and Bobby Lashley, with Dean Ambrose maybe being a factor leading to that. I would not be surprised to see two different things. Baron Corbin involve his nose into Kurt Angle's matches, or even Shane McMahon, who has made his return. It has been said that he is going to be a part of the Crown Jewel show in some way, and they do need to set up SmackDown versus Raw for Survivor Series, which is going to be coming up at the pay-per-view on the WWE Network in November. If they were to have Shane or somebody from SmackDown affect Kurt Angle winning in the World Cup, I would not be surprised if it would be in the finals down the road. So in the first round, I am picking Kurt Angle to beat Dolph Ziggler. In my opinion, that would set up a match between Kurt Angle and Bobby Lashley. Although it's Kurt Angle versus Bobby Lashley, they did battle in TNA Impact Wrestling. It's not the biggest dream match of all time for him to have as a part of Crown Jewel in WWE. There are, basically almost anybody else in this tournament you'd like to see Kurt Angle have a match against in WWE, but that's the way that I see that one going down. All right, when we look at the SmackDown Live section of the WWE Crown Jewel World Cup Tournament, in the first round, we're going to be having Jeff Hardy go up against The Miz. I can honestly tell you that off the top of my head, I don't know if we've seen this matchup somewhere down the road. It seems like almost every match in the Crown Jewel tournaments is some sort of a dream match that we've been looking forward to seeing. No doubt that due to time constraints and the amount of matches that are going to be on this show and how many superstars are going to be a part of the Saudi Arabia show, that these matches are sort of going to have to be like WWE King of the Ring fashion, that these matches are pretty short, because it be involved in winning the Crown Jewel, you have to wrestle 3 times on one show. So you don't want to burn yourself out. You don't want to be like Seth Rollins wrestling the 1-hour gauntlet match on Monday Night Raw a little while back. You got to figure that, these matches are probably more than likely to go 5-6 minutes tops. When I'm looking at Jeff Hardy versus The Miz, honestly, in the first round, I think I'm going to be picking The Miz to get the win, because I wouldn't be surprised when we look at Orton versus Mysterio that Mysterio moves on. And although we've been seeing Mysterio team up against Jeff Hardy on tag team matches on house shows, I don't know if they really want to have Mysterio versus Hardy as a singles match on this Crown Jewel show, where they basically just sort of throw it away. Mysterio versus Hardy, honestly, is a true dream match that I don't believe we've ever seen in WWE or anywhere else other than if it would have happened on an independent show somewhere down the road. So I think that's a match that they don't really want to throw away. The Miz, he's come out of a few different programs where they were, pretty, high class, but in the end of it, he didn't really come out the victor in the Daniel Bryan feuds or anything else. So him getting a win here over Jeff Hardy would keep him in favor on the SmackDown Live brand, because honestly, in my opinion, since jumping from Raw to SmackDown as a part of the Superstar shakeup, The Miz sort of fell down a little bit, even though he is wrestling on the B brand. So he'll find his spot, I'm sure, but in the Crown Jewel first round, I'm taking The Miz to beat Jeff Hardy. All right, Rey Mysterio versus Randy Orton. What a match that honestly this match is going to be. Jeff Hardy had this series of matches against Randy Orton that seemed like they were right out of 2008, 2009, that were highlighted by the Hell in the Cell match, which was honestly kind of a surprise, seeing how it wasn't even the main feud that was held on SmackDown Live at the time. But I think that was WWE just giving a tip of the hat to Jeff Hardy, where he'd always said that he always wanted to wrestle in a WWE Hell in the Cell match, and giving him that was honestly pretty cool. It ended up being a really good opener to the show, and Jeff Hardy's spot where he did the swinging dive that ended up having him fall through a table was pretty freaking cool. Rey Mysterio, he came back at SmackDown Live. Off the top of my head, I honestly really can't remember what he did. One of the dream matches that I'm really hoping for is to see Rey Mysterio wrestle against Andre Cien Almas sooner or later on this SmackDown Live brand. Cien Almas is one of the guys that I'm sort of hoping is going to be the guy to replace Daniel Bryan, giving us another match against AJ Styles. The last 2 of those matches were really good. But when it comes down to seeing Rey Mysterio versus Randy Orton, Orton's in a place right now where he's always going to be looked at as, you remember what he did, even though we haven't seen him do it in a while. I think that he actually fought for the United States Championship at WrestleMania, and I remember putting the pieces of the puzzle together that if something didn't happen with the United States Championship, where somebody got injured or something like that I don't even know where Randy Orton would have fit on the WrestleMania card. It just sort of fell into place for him to be there. But Orton's in a different place where they want to use him well. They want to have him around. They want that name value, but they probably don't really have a lot for him at this time is the problem. So in the first round here, I see Rey Mysterio as the guy who's going to beat Randy Orton. That would set up a match between Mysterio and the winner of Jeff Hardy and The Miz. This match honestly could go either way. I'm picking The Miz just because I'm keeping the babyface versus heel sort of deal going along. In my opinion, that's how most King of the Rings went. Every once in a while, you'd be having some sort of a babyface versus babyface match, but they don't come up that often. You know, Vince always likes to draw things together where it's going to be a babyface versus a heel, where he feels the crowd won't be split and the people know who to cheer for because they're following along with the script pretty much. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Rey Mysterio wrestling against The Miz in the second round and see who goes on to the finals to find out who is the best in the world at WWE's Crown Jewel. All right, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here tonight. Hopefully you guys watched all of the WWE first round matchup videos with Rollins versus Lashley, Kurt Angle versus Dolph Ziggler, Jeff Hardy versus The Miz, and Rey Mysterio versus Randy Orton. This, of course, is the Crown Jewel World Cup to find out who is going to be the best in the world somewhere down the road. I believe somewhere down the road that this is going to lead up to something involving Raw versus SmackDown at Survivor Series. This is probably the easiest way to sort of be a stepping stone to get us to that. We've already been announced Ronda Rousey having a match against Becky Lynch. That's going to be champion versus champion. More than likely, we're going to be seeing some sort of Braun Strowman versus AJ Styles match, in my opinion. My buddy Zach tweeted out the other day that how cool it would be if it ended up being Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan, a match that I think people have been waiting to see since, what year was WrestleMania 30 when he won the championship? Like 2013. So we've been waiting 5 years to see this match, if my math is right. Of course, Daniel Bryan has talked about how that was a match that was supposed to happen for SummerSlam. If Daniel Bryan didn't get injured, we all know that Brock was going to kill him. John Cena filled in for him and basically just wrestled the same style of match where Brock just threw him around the whole entire time. So, in my opinion, I think when I looked at the first round, I saw Seth Rollins beating Bobby Lashley. In my opinion, Dean Ambrose has to be some sort of involvement in that match, and that's why I picked Bobby Lashley. That's going to set up Rollins versus Ambrose somewhere down the road. It doesn't look like it's going to be able to happen at Survivor Series, so I think it has to happen more than likely just on Monday Night Raws and on house shows. It's probably going to be the Raw main event that they've been hyping up for the next while. So I got Bobby Lashley winning in the first round. I'll take Angle to beat Dolph Ziggler. That'll set up Bobby Lashley against Kurt Angle. When we switch over and we look at the SmackDown Live brand in the first round, I got The Miz defeating Jeff Hardy. That is a little bit of an upset. I don't honestly know how much Jeff Hardy has wrestled since WWE's Hell in the Cell, but I just picked The Miz. He needs something to sort of give him a spark. It seems like he's lost a lot of matches, even though he did get the 2 fluke victories against Daniel Bryan. I think that honestly his stock is starting to slip. If you looked at it, it's like he needs to go out there and find a way to win the United States Championship or something like that, because when he's in that sort of mid-card feud over a title, that's when he really gets heated up. He needs to jump back over to Raw and find a way to get that Intercontinental title off of Rollins, because it doesn't look like Rollins is going to be defending it anytime soon for the next while. Rey Mysterio versus Randy Orton, a match that seems like it's right out of 2009 on the SmackDown Live brand. We're going to be jumping into Doc Brown's time machine for this one. I got Mysterio getting the win here. I wouldn't be surprised because Mysterio just came back. He wrestled on the SmackDown 1000 show. And then, of course, now he's on the Jericho cruise, cruising around the world, having fun with those guys. So I don't know. I don't really see Rey Mysterio's first loss since returning to WWE being a part of the first round of the Crown Jewel tournament. So when we look over to the semifinals between Bobby Lashley and Kurt Angle, I'm going to be taking Kurt Angle to get the win over Bobby Lashley. I'm sure these guys, if you go back, you can see had matches in Impact and in TNA, and I'm sure they were really good matches, but I don't think that's the style of match that WWE is going to be asking out of Kurt Angle. In my opinion, I got Kurt going all the way to the finals now after beating Lashley. Hey, what up, guys? Sorry I had to move there. I was talking about the Rey Mysterio versus Randy Orton match, and in that match I got Rey Mysterio coming back and getting the win, where he would go on and face The Miz in the semifinals of the tournament. Moving back over to the Monday Night Raw side, I would pair Bobby Lashley going up against Kurt Angle. I think that Kurt Angle would honestly get the win to move on to the finals. I know that it is asking a lot for Kurt Angle to come back and wrestle 3 times, honestly, in one night. But definitely the storyline for Monday Night Raw is that Angle is pushing himself to the limits. He doesn't know if this is going to be the last time that he's able to go out there and show everybody how good he was. So I wouldn't be surprised that Angle honestly moves on to the finals. Facing over on the other side, I had Rey Mysterio pairing up against The Miz. In this match, I'm going to take Mysterio getting the win and moving on to the finals for SmackDown. I think the Mysterio versus Miz is honestly a sneaky good match that you honestly wouldn't have on a list of Mysterio dream matches since his return to WWE. But I think it honestly is going to be a treat that we honestly get to see this one match. In the finals, this would be a pairing of Kurt Angle wrestling against Rey Mysterio. I believe this would be a throwback to 2002. That would be the first match on the SummerSlam show. I'm pretty sure. On that show, I'm always sort of weirded out by the outfits that both of these guys wear. Obviously, they were trying to treat SummerSlam like it was a really big match, like a WrestleMania. Kurt Angle is wearing a weird attire. I think that in my head, Rey Mysterio is wearing some sort of a white jumper. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but the match is honestly really good. In my opinion, I think that Kurt Angle is going to be costed the match in the finals. I wouldn't be surprised to see Angle being interfered by either Shane McMahon from SmackDown Live, or maybe even Paige. Oh, Paige can't go. She's a woman there in Saudi Arabia, so it has to be Shane, or maybe even possibly Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin and Kurt Angle obviously are in some sort of a power struggle over Monday Night Raw. Corbin is in power right now due to Kurt Angle being on vacation. Obviously, Baron Corbin would want to stay in control of that job where he is running what is going on Monday Night Raw for Triple H and for Stephanie, who aren't around at this time. So somebody has to be the guy to keep Angle from winning the match. So I guess Rey Mysterio would be the guy winning the World Cup. He is a big name, obviously, from Rey Mysterio wrestling on the World's Greatest Royal Rumble show when he wasn't even a member of a WWE roster months back after WrestleMania. That obviously Rey Mysterio is somebody that the Saudis really asked for to be a part of the show. There was lots of rumors that came out after the World's Greatest Royal Rumble that they asked for Hulk Hogan and Yokozuna and Andre the Giant. They asked for all of these wrestlers who were no longer with us at this time. But honestly, when it comes down to it, Rey Mysterio, we're all glad that he is a member of the WWE roster. Yet once again, after those that time off after Rey split, whether if he wrestled for Lucha Underground or for some random indie, his time away from WWE has him well rested and ready to come back and have some really, really good matches. So I'm picking Rey Mysterio to win the World Cup, and I honestly think that he is one of the best guys to become one of the best in the world at Crown Jewel. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here with the matchup that everybody is talking about for WWE's Crown Jewel 2018. This is going to be the retirement match. No, I messed that up. This is going to be the comeback match of Triple H and Shawn Michaels of D-Generation X. Shawn Michaels wrestling his first match out of retirement since WrestleMania 26. Man, that was a long freaking time ago. I think that that's an 8-year break, much like his 8-year break after WrestleMania 14, before coming back and wrestling against Triple H at SummerSlam of 2002. Most people thought that was going to be a one-night payoff. Shawn Michaels, I think, is rumored to be wrestling matches at Crown Jewel as well as at Survivor Series, where Shawn would wrestle against Undertaker, and this match is only to sort of pay us off onto the next one. We saw the reunion of DX, which in my opinion, I should have seen coming last week at Monday Night Raw, but I didn't honestly think that they were going to do it that way. I thought that honestly they were going to have, Triple H really, try and pull Shawn Michaels out of retirement, where basically Undertaker and Kane were getting in on it as well, where Undertaker and Kane would keep beating up Triple H and Shawn Michaels to the point where we were wondering why Shawn was even coming around. And Triple H would keep asking, are you ready? And Shawn basically turning his back and walking out. These are the scenarios that I was thinking in my mind when I was sort of futuristically, booking this in my head. But instead, we just got Triple H and Shawn coming down to the ring, acting like they're DX of yesterday. And, Triple H basically said, Shawn, are you ready? And Shawn said he's in. We didn't really have any hype up to Shawn wrestling this match that we never thought was going to happen. We should honestly have, Shawn Michaels dancing around the ring, trying to sell his DX gimmicks and dropping $100 bills out of his pockets that Vince is stuffing in there to thank him for coming back out of retirement and being a part of Monday Night Raw and wrestling on Crown Jewel, thinking that it's going to bring more attention to the product, that, WWE's Mr. WrestleMania is coming back for one more match, when it's not even freaking WrestleMania. It's Crown Jewel, a made-up pay-per-view for this glorified house show in Saudi Arabia. We're going to have to see Undertaker and Kane pay off on this. If you go back and watch the end of the Super Showdown, when Undertaker and Kane beat up Triple H and Shawn Michaels, I thought that it was kind of weird that instead of going for the double choke slam, we saw Undertaker hit a choke slam on Triple H, and we only saw Kane punch Shawn Michaels, and then Undertaker chokeslammed Shawn. I don't know if that's because of the fact they wanted to have a payoff on the video where they would use for Survivor Series of Undertaker hitting the chokeslam on Shawn Michaels at the Super Showdown, and that's what led to the whole thing, or if Kane was just beaten up at this point in his retired career that he couldn't pick Shawn up for the chokeslam if he had some sort of injury and couldn't perform it himself. Definitely, in my mind, how can you have a Brothers of Destruction match at the Crown Jewel show without even having a false finish of a double chokeslam? So I'm hoping that Kane is honestly at 100%. Undertaker is a guy that, he just wrestled at the Super Showdown, and most of the time after he has any kind of match at a pay-per-view, basically he has to go back to the doctor and get put back together with some sort of major surgery that puts him on the shelf for almost a year. But, Undertaker is pushing right back out, taking the Crown Jewel WWE money and getting there. So definitely in my mind, this is probably some sort of a setup to get us to Undertaker versus Shawn at Survivor Series, a match that I think a lot of people are hoping to see, but sometimes you don't get what you wish for. We'll have to see if this Shawn Michaels still has it. And I'm sure that Shawn, at this point of his career, he's around NXT, helping out at the Performance Center all the time, that he might feel like he's still Shawn Michaels. But once you get in that ring, we're going to have to really see if he is still the Heartbreak Kid. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. We're sitting here talking about the new singles match for the soon-to-be-crowned WWE Universal Championship. Tonight on Monday Night Raw, we had Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar announced for the Universal Championship match at Crown Jewel after Roman Reigns was forced to vacate the championship after announcing that he has been battling leukemia for the last 11 years, and he had a little bit of a setback. We don't know how long Roman is going to be gone, but he has vowed that the goodbye is only for now, and he will be back soon. I don't know what to say is cursed in WWE, whether if it is the Shield reunion, that we just went through the second chance, that it is blown up in our face, that we did not get to see how this storyline was supposed to play out, or if it is blatantly the WWE Universal Championship itself. Finn Balor won the championship the first night it was, debuted in WWE at SummerSlam. In that match, he was forced to vacate the championship due to an injury. From there, Kevin Owens had a good run with it. It was handed off to Goldberg, then given to Brock Lesnar. Brock gives the belt to Roman Reigns, and now Roman goes down with leukemia, and he's going to be out, and the belt has been vacated yet once again. I know the first thoughts that went through my mind was how they were going to save the Crown Jewel show, if they were going to still use Brock. They're going to go with Brock versus Braun Strowman. This is the match that we've seen before. But one of the first thoughts that went through my mind was, what if Finn Balor actually got to be in the WWE Championship picture? He was a guy that honestly I thought would have benefited from moving over to SmackDown during the Superstar Shakeup, but they kept him on Monday Night Raw. Since then, he honestly really hasn't been used in any storylines that have any meaning as that are bigger than the mid card itself. There was a story about him opening up house show matches and just being a curtain jerker. Finn Balor to me is the future of wrestling. That's the reason why he came to WWE. I don't really know why he's in the spot that he's in, but I honestly thought of something when Balor came out as the first guy you saw after Roman Reigns vacated the championship. Hopefully we can get back in that direction, but at this time right now, it is going to be a singles match. We're only going to see Braun Strowman going up against Brock. Brock, to me, makes this match fun because he easily could regain the championship that he wants. But we don't really know what Brock's deal is in WWE. Is he here just for the day to take the Saudi Arabia money? Does he really have a deal that is secretly under wraps with WWE, that he is going to be wrestling shows? We always think that Brock's deal ends at WrestleMania. We thought it ended at SummerSlam. We thought he signed an extension to just wrestle a certain number of matches and make a certain number of appearances. But here he is at Crown Jewel wrestling for the Universal Championship. So there has to be some sort of deal until at least that UFC suspension comes under wraps. We do know that Brock is going to go back to UFC at one point. I mean, there's no reason why he would enter into the USADA testing, where he is going to be tested various times by USADA for UFC. If he was not going to go back to UFC, he just would basically, quote-unquote, retire from UFC, which would take him out of the testing pool, which would make it where he would not have to be tested. We all sort of can guess at the rumor why a WWE superstar would not want to be tested, especially somebody who's looked at as a part-time wrestler who can be chosen when he is going or I guess you can say WWE can choose when the testing is going to happen, when Brock Lesnar is going to be present, when he is going to be sporadically chosen as the one to be tested. I honestly don't think that Brock has probably ever been tested by WWE, and there's some people who even rumor to guess that Vince, Triple H, The Rock, maybe even The Big Show, anybody who is not around all that much, that just looks permanently jacked, that they've probably never been tested as well. The Braun Strowman versus Brock match in the past, I honestly can't remember what pay-per-view it was. For some reason, I want to think Battleground. I was trying to think that it might have been Balls of Fire. Or no, yeah, that was a show. Can you believe it? WWE ran a pay-per-view named Great Balls of Fire? But that was Samoa Joe against Braun Strowman, so that wasn't it. But I honestly thought the match was good. Strowman got some early offense, but the match ended in a matter of no time, and it was the first loss that Strowman had given. Right now, I honestly think Strowman's going to get the belt. I don't think that Brock is going to be around long term. I don't think he's going to be around long time. I think that they're going to put the belt on Strowman. They're going to treat this like it's probably the biggest win that he's ever got. And Strowman is going to be going in and defending against guys like Dolph Ziggler, against Drew McIntyre, and seeing where he ranks up as being the new monster of WWE. They've been building this guy up for a long time. It's honestly time to see what he can do as being the main guy, because he's always floated around being the number 2 guy. But with Roman gone, we need a new number 1, and it looks like it's going to have to be Braun Strowman.